So she wanted all of us to know that as a new gal in town, she's very happy to connect with our group. She said, being new to the area, I really miss my female colleagues and friends. Thank you for inviting me. Without further ado, Libby Pigeon.
Thank you very much, all of you, and Janet especially. I will tell you, I looked over at my table of esteemed colleagues here while Janet was introducing me, and I said, I think I better tell them to lower their expectations. I really am thrilled to be here. It's a great opportunity. The first part of my presentation is a little bit more about me, and the second part really is for you. It really is about what we look for when we're assessing candidates. Our field is a lot of fun. We laugh a lot. We do a lot of things differently than were done probably 3, 5, 8, 10 years ago. And we're really having fun at Big Y because I have the opportunity to really build some great things in a phenomenal company. So it has been a blast for me. The one thing I don't know is how I'm advancing my slides. Left, right, anybody know? Just try. How about this one? Nope. This one? Nope. I like to experiment, so just bear with me a minute here. Not quite sure.
Here's the expert.
I need help.
You have to turn it
Well, who knew?
on. There.
Now
That's
that one?
forward, that's backwards, and that's a laser if you want.
Ooh,
Okay.
they gave me a laser to play with and everything. This is awesome. Again, I can't take it. My colleagues are just telling me I can't take this with me, which they know I love gadgets, so I probably would try and do that. When I first started talking with Janet, you know, she asked me to just talk a little bit about how I got to where I am in my career. And it has been what I like to call my journey. And as one of my favorite colleagues used to always tell me is you have to survive the journey. And I think that's kind of what has been in the back of my mind, the motto, no matter what's going on around you, everybody knows change is happening faster than ever. You have to survive the journey. So that's what I've tried to do. And so far it's worked out pretty well, I think. I've had some ups and downs, which I'll share with you. But I always, you know, I think it's a very funny thing to try and talk about yourself. So you will see that I indicated that up there. I really do credit my mom with a ton. She was a very, very forward-thinking woman. She was very progressive. She raised myself and my 2 brothers from the ages of 9, 10, and 11 by herself. We did live all over the country, and that was due to my dad's job. He was changing jobs early in his career. I am originally from Buffalo, New York, and he worked for a company called Bell Helicopter, which was huge in the 50s, and they opened a big plant down in Fort Worth, Texas, and that's how we ended up going from Buffalo, New York to Texas. I think I was about 6 months old at the time. Lived in Texas till I was about 6 years old, and then he got a promotion and we moved to Boston. Lived in Boston for about 5 years till I was about 11. And then sadly my dad passed away very young, and my mom picked us all up and moved us back to Buffalo. So we had my mom and my dad were both from families of 6 kids, so I have like enormous amounts of cousins. So we went back to Buffalo, and I lived there until I moved to Minneapolis about 10 years ago. So I lived most of my adult life so far in Buffalo. I do feel I've been a very lucky person, and I have had tons of opportunity. It was fun for me when I went into the workforce. I really had no idea what I wanted to do, which I think many of us have faced. I think the young people that are coming up now are really a lot more focused on where they want to go, what they want to do. I think that's good, and I think it's also kind of you maybe lose a little bit because you're so focused on one thing. And I went through this with my first son and with my second son, so it's very interesting to me. I loved, and I had to lean over and say to Janet, what a wonderful program those young ladies who they all just graduated from, and the women who were mentoring them. I think that is phenomenal. I've done similar things in my past, and I love it. And I also have been fortunate enough in my career to have some wonderful mentors. Still do, as a matter of fact, and I rely on them very heavily. So that's something I really try hard to give back. I have done it pretty much in every organization that I've been with, and it's really fun for me because, like the women here, who I'm sure will be watching all of your careers, I have continued to watch the careers of the young men and women that I've had a chance to mentor, and it's really been fun for me. I have insatiable curiosity. I don't know why, I just do. Maybe it's because I'm an Aquarius. I don't know. We're supposed to be curious by nature, I guess, but if you believe that stuff. But I really do have insatiable curiosity. I always want to know why. I always want to know what. I always want to know what happened before, especially at Big Y, because it's very important, because everyone is married to someone in the company. Or they're their aunt, uncle, cousin, grandchild, niece, or nephew. And my team here has done a phenomenal job and spent inordinate amounts of time educating me on this. And I try really hard not to forget. But I really am curious about things. I love to read. It's one of my favorite pastimes. Do love to go to the movies too and all those kinds of fun things. And I just have an appetite to try new things. I think that has served me well in my career and in my life. I kind of just charge into things, and some of them work and some of them don't. And I'm sure we probably have all had those experiences. Lots of zigs and zags, which I will very briefly tell you about. Some I created and some that were created for me, like being downsized a few times here and there and some other things that have occurred. But whether or not you create them or they happen to you, I always tell people development is never a solo trip. You've got to bring other people with you. And the one thing that we talk about a lot at Big Y and that I think is really important is that you really own your own development. Whether you're working with folks and you're a leader or you're earlier in your career, you really have to be the one who's going to look out for where you go and what you do. And you have to really own your own development and not wait for somebody to say, hey, Libby, I've got a great opportunity for you. Because usually that doesn't happen. Okay, now let's see how successful I will be with moving this. Oh, look at that. I'm very proud. I am a teacher by trade and education. I was certified to teach K through 6. I found teaching, interestingly enough, there are lots of former teachers in human resources. So I don't know where the exact connection is there. I can tell you what I think some of the things that translate are, which is you really do get great platform skills when you go through an education for education. You learn how to write lesson plans. You learn how to stand up in front of a group and speak. You learn all of those things. You learn a lot of planning skills. Probably the most important skill that you learn in education is dealing with children, which I find very beneficial with some colleagues. Not mentioning any names, of course, Claire. I'm not. And present company accepted, all of you. But you do get some skill with some psychology and learning how to deal with different types of folks, whether they're in your classroom or they're your colleague. I have tried a ton of different jobs. I did teach for a couple of years after I graduated from college. It was a tough time to find a teaching job, but I did teach for a couple of years. I worked in retail early in my career and kind of took maybe 10 or 12 years where I didn't do that and then landed back in retail. I worked in banking at one time. I worked, believe it or not, because this is so not me, as a computer programmer at one time. I don't know how I bribed my way into that job. I actually have no idea. I took one class when I was at school, but somehow they hired me and I managed to do it without messing anything up too terribly badly. I was a Lamaze instructor, which was one of my favorite things ever to do. When my first son was born, I took about 5 years off, during which time my second son was also born. But having this insatiable curiosity and also having been so impressed by my own Lamaze instructor that I decided that was something I'd like to do. So I got certified to do that, which is a very long process. And I taught for about 5 years, which was just a wonderful thing to do. Had a blast with it. Because of that, I got involved in a lot of nonprofit work in maternal child health education. And I had an opportunity to do some really cool things that were very satisfying to me. And I think it's part of the reason, one of the things I love about Big Y is that we do some things there that I always say to one of my colleagues, Pat, I'll point at her, not rudely, just point at her. But Pat runs some programs out of her area that I always tell her feed my heart, because she does some wonderful things with the school system in Springfield. She does some program with the Y that I think is just phenomenal. We have a summer of work and learning program that runs right out of our office. And so it's just been, that's been a real added plus for me to have the opportunity to work with Pat and her team on those things, because I just love them. And then I kind of literally fell into HR. I really made it up as I went along. And it just was something that I started doing. I had worked at a pretty good sized, as a computer programmer, company that was very well run and had a very, sophisticated HR practice. And then I went to work for a gentleman who, the microscope up there, was a PhD chemist, brilliant guy, started a business in Buffalo, New York in his garage, testing paint on toys for Fisher-Price, which was and is located in a suburb of Buffalo. And he grew this little tiny business. Before that, he was actually a police chemist. He did, tested evidence and all those kinds of things. He was a really fun guy. We used to say he spent a little too much time close to the chromosomes or something, because there was some wacky stuff going on in his head periodically. But he built this great little company that did toy testing, and they started with Fisher-Price, and really, they're still in business. They expanded when they landed, this was in the late 80s, early 90s that I was with this company, and they landed McDonald's as a client and started doing all the testing for the Happy Meal prizes, which just, took us from 0 to 100 in a very quick period of time. They didn't really have any formal HR processes in place at all. There were 24 people when I joined the company. I was number 25. And I think when I left, there were close to 500, and he had a lab in Hong Kong and one in Seoul, Korea, and one in Toronto, and had really grown his business. But I kept saying things like, well, why don't we have a 401k plan, or why don't we have performance reviews, or why don't we have a compensation program? And I guess he got tired of me asking, because he finally just said, why don't you just do it? I said, okay. I had no formal education. I'm really self-taught, which a lot of us are in this field. It's kind of something I think that you discover you like to do. But there's a lot in HR that you have to be educated on. Obviously, we deal with the really great stuff like development and the wonderful programs I talked about, but we also deal a lot with laws and regulations, and you don't want to mess those up, or you will not be appreciated at your company, because it can really get you in trouble. But I really did. He sent me to he was very generous. He let me go to some conferences and seminars, and I sought out other HR professionals in Buffalo and found the local chapter of SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, which I didn't even know existed. So that was like kind of like a treasure chest for me. And just tried lots of stuff. And I just really, really loved the work. So I've been doing it now for 21 years, I think is the right number. And really almost all of it, as Janet said, in the food business.